We are McKilligan. We shaking your head at that, loser. That was good.
Forgot you could see me.
I can see you fucking little. Hello and welcome back to I Could Murder a Minnesota, episode number 63. How are you, boys? 2 thumbs up from Dan, 2 thumbs up from Ben, one higher than the other.
I am a lovely
loser
today. Thanks, everyone.
Well, there you go, Ben. Skulls on there.
Skulls and
I didn't realise the
leaves.
skulls.
Yeah, sneaky skulls and fallen leaves and roses.
And a pocket full of
Poses.
and tissue. About the Black Death. That.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that interesting, isn't it? A little bit of knowledge for you guys.
I'd love to do an episode on the Black Death.
It killed a lot of people.
Captain Scott dying in the South Pole. That's another weird episode I'd consider.
This case here, I'm going to straight into it. Dominic McKilligan, the smiling face of evil, picked by Lucy Moffat. It was quite a considerable victory in the polls.
Thank you, Lucy.
Straight away I thought, the name sounds like it's from a murder mystery. Dominic McKilligan. I mean,
At least he's not Will. Killigan.
Yeah. It's implied though, isn't it? McKilligan. The smiling face of evil. Yeah, that's a very emotive kind of title. And again, it's like a good title being picked. Have you heard of him before?
Not at all.
Neither had I. And when I Googled it, not many people had. Really a lack of information about this case.
Oh.
A few kind of articles, but very brief. So from the bat, there wasn't a great deal I could find out about his childhood and his kind of his origins. But I found a documentary about it. It's going to be a slightly different delivery in this, that I'm going to be doing an accent. No, I'm not. It's going to be a slightly different formatted way of doing it. So it's going to be more kind of based on the kind of perspective of the family affected by his actions, or one of the families affected by his actions, the Neely family. So it's going to be kind of done in a timeline, painting a picture of the story, and then it kind of introspectively looks back at some of the his actions beforehand. So even though it's titled Dominic McKilligan, it's kind of based around the victim Wesley Neely. But yeah, very fascinating case, very dark case as per usual. I think The Smiling Face of Evil is a bang-on title. It makes a lot of sense.
Lucy just gets the polls, I think.
She does. As I said, slightly different this week from this perspective, but here we go. So Wesley Neely was an 11-year-old young lad who lived in the West End of Newcastle. He loved cycling, football, and spending time with his granddad. He was a Newcastle fan.
Didn't expect it to be a British case. I was definitely expecting an American.
Yeah, me too, actually.
McKilligan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Scotland.
Irish? Or, yeah, McKilligan.
Or McKilligan.
Hi, McKilligan. Or, hey, McKilligan.
Both of them work.
Yeah.
Geordie?
I'm not very good at the Geordie, ironically. I'm not very good at either of them either.
Aye.
We are McKilligan. We shaking your head at that, loser. That was good.
Forgot you could see me.
I can see you fucking little. McKilligan actually is from Bournemouth.
Oh.
On May 1998, Wesley Neely was grounded as he'd been approached by a man to help him fix his car, and his mum Liz kept him in for a fortnight. Yeah, he came back home, he's quite excited, he'd been asked to kind of help this guy fix his car. Obviously, Wesley's only 11 years old, and his mum's like, well, she's like, you don't know anything about cars, why is some weird
Is
man...
that her first go-to?
Well, it's more like, why is a man approaching a young boy to do it?
Oh, right.
But also, it's like, it made it even stranger, the fact that he's not like, he was known around the area for being into cars and stuff like that. So it's like, why is a stranger approaching you?
That's my first
Why
question.
are you talking to strangers? She grounded him for talking to a stranger. Just wanted to kind of keep an eye on him.
Do you guys ever get the stranger danger thing?
Yeah. Apparently my mum had a go at me because she did teach a stranger danger way before the Ian Huntley thing. But I said I wasn't the one making a point that stranger danger wasn't a thing. That was very much Ben. So I said, have a go at him if you want to have a go at anyone.
Did I make a point about it? About
Yeah,
negative?
You said it wasn't really a thing.
It wasn't though, really. Well,
She said, I very much told you guys about it. She's like, you didn't pipe up and say that I told you about it. And I was like,
I remember a woman, like a young 20s, late teens, trying to get me and my brother in her car. But that was weird.
yeah, it's weird.
But we didn't know stranger danger and we didn't know her, but so we were just like kind of, no.
No, you're trying to get young 20-year-olds and...
Opposite.
Yeah, opposite, yeah.
Yeah.
Grave robber.
Wow.
Wesley, obviously a young lad, loved being outdoors, loved his bike, was getting a bit restless after being in for 2 weeks, and begged his mum, please let me out. I'll just play in the street and outside the house, and you can keep an eye on me. And she basically, yeah, that's fine. And she did keep an eye on him, looked out the window, and he was still there. She was like, okay, that weird guy's gone. I don't have to worry about that anymore. He kept his word. He just played out there because he had to take medication as well because he has epilepsy. He would come back to do that. It wasn't out later than he agreed to be out. Yeah, it all seemed to be just like, oh, that was a weird moment that happened in life. So his mum decided that he had learnt his lesson about not talking to strangers. So the following day, Wesley was sent home from school as he suffered from epilepsy, like I said, and he wasn't feeling very well. When Wesley woke up, he was a bit confused as to why he was home and how he got there. Obviously, he had an episode and his mum picked him up and he wasn't really with it. So when he woke up, it was about 2 in the afternoon. He asked his mum if he could have 50p to go to the shops to buy some sweets for him and his younger brother Robert, because him and his mum were about to collect him from the local nursery. His mum didn't see any harm in it because the shops were just around the corner and it was a nice thing for him to do for his younger brother as well. So she gave him the 50p and off he went on his bike, which would give him, plenty of time for him to come back and for them to go and collect the younger brother. But then an hour passed by, which, as I said, was only a couple of minutes down the road, and Wesley's mum became increasingly worried. She could see other kids playing out in the street outside the house, and she asked if they had seen Wesley, and they all said that they hadn't seen him. She went to the nursery to pick up Robert, and when she returned, there was still no sign of Wesley. So at 4:30 every day, that's when Wesley had to take his medication, and he knew how important it was. Obviously, recently suffering the epileptic fit before, he knew that what could happen if he didn't take it, or he just was very vigilant with taking it, and he wouldn't mess around with it. But there was still no sign of him at this point, and in a panic, Liz rang her dad, Wesley's granddad, to see if he had gone to see him, because she knew they were very close, and it would be out of character, but it wouldn't be out of complete question, the idea that he's just gone to see his granddad. So Liz had it confirmed that Wesley did make it to the corner shop and he did buy sweets. She knew that his story of him going there was true. He went there. But as the hours were passing by, it hit 9:30 that night, and Wesley had been missing for around 7 hours. And this obviously is when Liz is really beginning to worry, because, even, I hate the expression boys being boys, if you were staying out for a bit later, if you're that age 11, you're not staying out until 9:30.
No. There was a quote as well. There was a statistic from last week's case, the Mark the true one, that said in the first 24 hours of a child being abducted, it is 91% likely that if they had gone for longer than 24 hours, it's 91% chance that they've been killed.
Jesus, yeah.
Which is high.
It's very, very high, yeah. So this was very unlike Wesley, especially the fact that he'd been poorly that day. And obviously this, like you said, it would enter your mind kind of like that maybe he's had another attack, maybe he's fallen off his bike and hit in his head, or all these things that could be running through her head. Or perhaps, maybe he had spoken to a stranger again. So she called the police, and the police weirdly needed some convincing, especially with that statistic you just said. They kind of thought, he's probably just mucking about, he's probably just with a friend. And she's like, well, no, I've spoken to all of his friends. I know his normal group. All of them have confirmed that Wesley's not with them, and they haven't seen Wesley. Basically, they radioed out to the other police force and saying, because he had quite a unique bike. He had a pink and white bike, which is, for a young boy to be riding on, is very unique in terms of memorable and very visible. And then the whole neighbourhood all joined in the search to look for Wesley. So midnight has passed.
And this is up in Newcastle, right?
Yeah. So midnight has passed. And then 72 hours goes by and still no sign. Obviously not looking very good for Wesley. So a young boy, whilst looking for Wesley, did find his bike and returned it to Liz. And this, obviously by this stage anyway, Liz is beside herself with worry. But this was apparently the crux to really getting her, he loved that bike more than anything. He wouldn't just leave it. So she kind of then was fearing the absolute worst. 3 weeks go by. And the police now, obviously, they're thinking they're looking for a body. They're not thinking they're looking for a young boy still alive. They begin to look up local sex offenders and paedophiles in the area and where, houses where they usually be kept and stuff like that, and started talking to them. But a social worker one of the kind of shining lights in this from Northumberland, directed them toward an 18-year-old music student, Dominic McKilligan. There's a perfect storm of circumstance in McKilligan why he wasn't on the police's radar. And if this social worker didn't highlight him, he probably wouldn't have been found out. So the police looked into McKilligan's history and found out when he was 14 and he lived in Bournemouth, he was convicted of the gross indecent assault of 4 boys and was sentenced to 3 years in a secure unit in Aycliffe, County Durham. He wasn't charged with rape because the law, which was changed literally the day after he was sentenced, deemed a child his age is not capable of the crime, which is unimaginable. He wasn't put on the Sex Offenders Register because the Sex Offenders Act 1997 only came into force the day after he was released.
He's had it quite lucky then.
Literally the day after he was released. So after he'd been released, he stayed up in North and stayed up in Newcastle. If he was in prison for another week longer, he'd be on that register, or at least be noted down, because like I said, because he was that age, they believed that you couldn't commit that kind of crime. But yeah, so a perfect storm there where he's just managed to kind of swoop under the radar. And as well, another thing to note is Wesley's bike that had been discovered by the boy was discovered not too far from McKilligan's home address. During this time, missing posters, people calling up, there was lots and lots and lots of sightings of Wesley, or people believe there were sightings, which I've heard, the phrase I've never heard before, which is, it's something along the lines of a sympathy sighting. It's they want to see him, they wanted to have seen him, and they wanted to reassure the parents that he's still alive. So it's not done in a manipulative, negative way. It's not done to be, misleading. It's done to kind of try and give comfort. Might be
if you're looking for something, you see it.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to buy a car, before you buy it, you see that car everywhere.
Yeah, so like, a lot of sightings, and the mum kind of knew, like with every case we've done, if there's loads and loads of sightings, lots of reports, the police have to follow up on these things, and they can then, take them in the wrong direction, even if it's done with the best intent. McKilligan was also one of these people to call the hotline and report a sighting of Wesley, stating that he didn't know him, but he had seen him, which you wonder, I mean, obviously I know the rest of the story, but you wonder, is that just to mock and be an absolute...
Was that Ian Huntley one? Yeah. Because he knew that if people had seen him or driven past seeing the girls, then he would then be outed as a liar. So maybe
that's a very good point.
Maybe if he had been seen seeing the boy or in the same area.
Yep, that's very true, very true.
Or to look like he's helping.
Yeah. So the police arrest McGilligan and take him for questioning. The lead detective describes him as confident to the point of coming across arrogant, having no remorse, and having a real hard streak about him. He kind of knew there was a steely kind of like darker layer to him. After getting these strange vibes from McKilligan and also him being the lead suspect the police had, they search his residence and they find a torn up cheque with a cheque made out to Wesley Neely. It's obviously, that's very damning evidence to have in your flat, and if you were so intelligent you would have thought.
Yeah.
And McKilligan claims he had wrote out a number of blank cheques and somebody wrote Wesley's name on there in order to put him in the shit, basically. The cheque was for £150. So you think he was claiming someone had tried to stitch him up and wrote his name on it. Which,
how else could you lie if that was found in your property?
I guess maybe him and the local Peters just have a weird banter about him. Like, oh, that was Neville the nonce. He's, that went Neville.
When I get my hands on him. Oh.
But handwriting experts conclude, unsurprisingly, that it was in fact McGilligan's handwriting.
So hang on. So McGilligan had written a £150 cheque for Wesley
Neely.
I'm trying to work out where this is going.
So McKilligan was released by the police, but they kept him under surveillance because that's not enough to go, you're guilty. Even a very weird thing to have.
Yeah. Does it say why he wrote a cheque for him or not?
I'll get to it.
All right. Well, I was just checking because that's interesting.
I know, check it, but don't worry, mate. I wish the checks were done more thoroughly. Well, they did check out the cheque more thoroughly and they found out it was his handwriting. Again, like I said numerous times, with these kind of things, the people that they come across, like, well, he doesn't really, but if you've just been released by the police, you're gonna be on your best.
Yeah, I'm staying in the house. I'm not moving.
Yeah.
Not doing anything out of ordinary.
He begins to change number plates of cars. He bought a suspicious amount of aspirin and razor blades. So, I mean, that obviously there's intent there. Weirdly, in the thing I was watching about it, they didn't go straight away to that's suicidal. They put it more towards maybe it would be used for harming other people.
So in that situation then, because I assume he's gone into a shop, come out with a plastic bag, do they then go into that store and say, I'm the police, what has he just bought?
Interesting.
Because I'd imagine...
I guess surveying, you could just use the...
or some undercover guy goes in there, looks at what he's putting in his basket.
Or CCTV.
That would also do a thorough job.
But yeah, I guess CCTV, you could then just look at the time and get the till time and see what's bought and stuff like that.
But if they needed information urgently, like they were following him, they needed to know it now in case he's getting...
Yeah, what meal deals he get.
Well, exactly.
Chicken and stuffing, get him. Well, they were surveying him enough to know what he's buying from the shop, and that kind of was red flags to them. So the police intervene and bring him into question further, which I would have thought that's immediately making him go, he's going to top himself.
Yeah.
And why is he going to top himself? So McKilligan admits he abducted Wesley, but then claims he handed Wesley to another group of paedophiles. So he goes on to say, I won't tell you who they are, but they have phoned me and confirmed that Wesley is still alive.
This is mental.
Yeah.
All they have on him at this point is the check.
Yeah.
And that isn't enough to get him.
Yeah.
So why isn't he just... I'm not...
No.
Why doesn't he just stay... Shut the fuck up?
Yeah. I mean, it would be a better defence than saying...
I did have him, but you know what?
I abducted him. Yeah, but they're worse than me and I gave him to them. But I'm not going to tell you who they are.
No, will you leave me to my aspirin and razor blades, please? I'm going to bed.
I'll go to the shop. Do you want to... Interesting thing that's just popped in my head. I was talking to a friend the other day who did do some time in prison, and not for anything related to this whatsoever. I was talking to him about the thing where you get a kettle and you put sugar in it, and then you throw that at someone because it dissolves and it sticks to the skin.
Yeah.
He told me that's not the worst one. He's like, you get the tuna tins and you get the oil from the tuna tins. Like, it's not the white brine. It's the the actual oil. You pour that into a kettle, you boil that up. And then you throw it on people.
Yeah, because it would just stay there, wouldn't it?
They just burn you. Completely irrelevant. Just popped in my head. I thought I'd share it with you.
Cheers for that, Tom.
There you go.
I watched that as well. Another tangent. You know, when we did Maudsley, the Maudsley case, there was that Channel 5 on HMP Wakefield. Very good watch. Very good watch. They talked about the sugar.
Yeah.
The old sugar in the kettle.
But the tuna.
Yeah. Oh, someone's really got to annoy you for that.
Oh, yeah. This is all the police had to go on at this stage. So they obviously took his word as, that's what he did. So they started looking very seriously into what McKilligan had said and started looking into who possibly this ring of paedophiles could be. And they're also kind of very careful as, they believed at this point Wesley was still alive. So they didn't want to do anything which would spook people and then put him in any danger. When the police identify, I don't know how they identified this, when the police identify one of the people who was supposed to be part of this pedo ring, he's not given any names. So I don't know how he's...
Other instances in the same geographical area. Isn't there a website you can go on and it's like it'll show you people in your area?
But then just wouldn't say part of a ring.
Might have Wesley.
Part of a ring.
It must be some sort of, this person has done that sort of thing before or trafficked people before.
Yeah. So it becomes very clear that McKilligan had fabricated the whole story. So they question McKilligan again and he responds with, "Okay, I will take you to where Wesley is," in a very smug way. This is 1 month after Wesley has been missing.
I hate this.
So he then takes police 20 miles west of Newcastle to some woodlands and says in a deadpan voice, he's down that lane. So even the fact that he's 20 miles away from, they haven't been able to obviously, because they would know, by the stage they would know his car. I know he's changing his license plate, but they know his car. They wouldn't been obviously looking at CCTV and stuff to know where he'd been. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They haven't been taken to this spot before. The way I'm thinking with this is if the social worker hadn't pointed him out, he would have been under the radar.
Yeah.
And if he hadn't said these things, then they wouldn't have come across.
The thing that I hate so much about that is it's give me the James Bolger vibes, this case, but to then hear he's down that street.
Yeah. So yeah, so it's the woodland basically pulling down like a dirt track, and he was like, he's down there. So the detective got out of the car, followed the route which McKilligan had pointed down, and found a black bin liner with small feet sticking out from the bag. He knew immediately that it was Wesley, as the shoes matched the description Liz gave about what he was wearing that day and the day that he went missing. He's found this body. He's been there for a month. Obviously, it's summer. The heat and the woodland and the creatures. The body's obviously not in a very good condition at this point. It's been decomposing. And yeah. Wesley had been abducted and murdered on the day he went missing. Once the detective returned to the car and revealed what he found, McKilligan asked if he was able to have his car back now.
He's not right.
He had no remorse, obviously, like I said, but he didn't seem to be. He's like, I've shown you the body, I've given you what you wanted. That's that. And this is, I can't remember what the other case was when the story was so elaborate about Ian Huntley. His did a very elaborate way of how he said the girls died.
Oh, yeah. One of them was
slipped.
Muddy, slipped in the shower, the other one saw it.
Yeah, that kind of. So McKilligan claimed that he didn't actually kill Wesley, but when he came outside, he saw Wesley on the roof of his beloved car. He shouted to him for him to get off it. So Wesley fell off the roof because he was kind of surprised about being shouted at. And he fell and he hit his head on a wrench, which is just such an elaborate... You could just say he fell and hit his head.
Yeah.
But the wrench is like key.
It's like your thing the other week if they give you more than one reason why they're bailing.
If you just say he fell, he hit his head. But then this is the even more bizarre bit. He then said he got a bin liner and put Wesley inside it and squeezed his neck. So he's in a sense, he's just admitting he's killed him. So I don't really get what's the whole... If you're going to admit to killing him, why have you done the weird setup to it?
Because he's probably thinking they're also going to find handprints on his neck.
Yeah, but then check his pulse. That's obviously bollocks in terms of like if you're going to have like strangulation marks, but rather than just saying, squeeze his neck. So yeah, McKilligan was arrested for rape and murder of Wesley, as the postmortem would indicate that the body had also had signs of rape. The police were very, very eager to get the rape charges on here because that would then put him on the child sex offenders list, which he wasn't on. They wanted to really get that on there just to make sure, going forward, that was on his record. It's really sad. Liz and her dad, Wesley's granddad, wanted to see the body, but the police were very much advised against it, obviously, with how the condition the body was in. It's just not a thing you want to see, but they felt it really lacked closure from this because they weren't able to see it. So they kind of didn't get the closure or get the goodbye that they wanted, which is very sad. In the courtroom, when Wesley's mum, Liz, saw McKilligan for the first time, she froze. She recalled going to the school one day to get Wesley to come home for tea. He was playing football with his mates, and a man ran over to her and asked her if she was his mum. That man was in fact McKilligan. So he was playing football with children on the field, and he'd spoken to her before. She also remembered that when the man was asking for Wesley to help with the car, that man also offered to give him a cheque.
Oh, God. So he's shown Wesley the cheque, hasn't he?
Oh. So that's the kind of links there. It's like the guy that she was so worried about, and rightly so. There's definitely a mother's intuition, like when something's not right. She was obviously very right to be worried about him.
even then, this is weird. If I'm the parent of Wesley and I see, what was he, 17?
They're 11, he's 18.
I wouldn't be as alarmed as if it was a middle-aged man. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think
Because it could just be
a brother.
Yeah, like a brother figure.
Yeah.
Whereas when you said a man tried to get them...
But as well, you wouldn't assume an 18-year-old being a paedophile.
No. He's just playing football with the boys. That's, Oh, that's horrific. So it's completely premeditated.
Yeah. They seem to have very much picked his victim there. Experts studied McKilligan and came to the conclusion that he was in the top spectrum of being a psychopath. The experts also warned the police if for whatever reason the jury believed McKilligan to be innocent and he was to walk free, the police must keep him under strict surveillance as he believed McKilligan would strike again. That expert was very adamant that because of the no remorse, the smug behaviour, the...
Attempted to lie.
Yeah, attempted to lie because, essentially he obviously got Wesley and thereby tricking him to be his friend, tricking he's going to pay him, used a wrench to smack him over the head and to strangle him.
So that's why the wrench comes in.
Yeah, that's it's trying to tick the boxes, isn't it, as to why this bit happened. Fortunately, it took the jury only 3 hours to come up with a guilty verdict for murder and for rape. McKilligan was sentenced for 9 years for the rape and life for murder was the sentence he got. So, life in the UK is 20 years. He didn't react at all to the sentence. People believe he thought he was going to get out of it because he was so confident, but he didn't react at all, didn't wince at all. The judge told him, "You have nerves of steel. You are a dangerous and manipulative, callous paedophile and killer." When the van took him away from the prison, and people swarmed the van and was hitting the van, like you've seen before, but some of the people doing it were in fact jurors.
Wow.
Which is powerful.
I really thought you were going to say he pleaded insanity.
No.
That's what's kind of surprised me.
I think he's so arrogant he probably wouldn't want to be deemed as mentally unstable. He comes across that way. I mean, like the smiling face of evil, there's images of him and pictures of him smiling in mugshot and things like that. It's absolutely horrible. He's such a young guy as well, which is another quite different thing about this case. You don't get many, as I said. It feels like, you have your classic idea of what a paedophile is. Isn't it? An older man, but there's a young adult. So later on, he did appeal the rape charge, and it was actually lifted as the decomposition of the body left the body with not sufficient enough evidence to actually convict him on that, because it was left in the woodland, like I said, in the month of summer. So he is still not on the sex offenders list. Wesley's granddad vowed revenge. He said, "If I could get my hands on him, I'd kill him. There's no doubt about that. He is pure evil. If it had not been for the fact I may have harmed others, I would have taken a gun or bomb into the court to get rid of him." And McKilligan has now served his 20 years and is now 38 and is able to apply for parole. The parole board has said that it would carefully look at a whole range of evidence, including details of the original evidence and any evidence of behaviour change, and public safety is our number one priority. Yeah, because obviously when someone's reached the end of the sentence, they can be put in front of the parole board. The parole board have every right to say no. If they don't believe you've been rehabilitated, or they don't think you've learnt your lesson, that's a weak way of saying it, but they don't want to be set free. Obviously, with that expert previously saying they strongly recommend it doesn't get let out again. With that level of psychopathy, it's just seems like an immediate danger letting him out again, especially like he abused those boys when he was very young, got let out again, and he escalated to killing very quickly. So yeah, he just seems so cold and calculated. It's just, I'll be very surprised if he gets let out, but weirder things have happened.
Yeah, given a new identity probably to keep him safe. That was what I was dreading.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, it's 20 years ago, yeah, so it's been 23 years now. And
so the victim was probably the same age as us.
Yeah, so the victim was 3 years older than us, yeah.
Horrific.
Yeah, absolutely horrific. But yeah, it's very interesting. A lot of layers to it.
The way you told it, I was gripped.
Yeah, the jurors hitting the van is something I've never heard of anything like that. I mean, Chikatilo, he had a glass box of people throwing stuff and victims, but it's horribly dark case. Which is, I could only put the name in the thing, find one video on it. So there's not much about it out there. As I said, I couldn't delve into his childhood as much as I would usually would. It was quite nice doing it from the perspective of the victim's family, because it's such a young lad, and that it's such a sad story.
Killigan, I'm assuming his family maybe are more from like the Bournemouth area.
Yeah,
but then he's gone up there as a teenager on his own. So he's got his independence. Yeah,
so he got arrested for the abuse, but he was stationed in County Durham.
Right.
So when he was released...
So he had to stay within a...
No, I think when he released, he just stayed off that general area.
Right.
And he just kind of stayed around there. So I think it was 9 months after his release, this all happened. The whole thing about not being put on the register.
Kudos to that social work.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because as I said, like, there's so many... If she didn't do that, and if he hadn't told him where the body is, I mean, it would have been a very long time before the family got any closure. Because a month, in the grand scheme of things like Maddie, for example, like, ongoing, but it's a month every day would be absolute agony. So I hope the family have some formal closure now. With parole hearings, that's every 2 years. So this is all going to be drenched up every 2 years, then worrying about him being released again. So yeah, it's just a very, very dark case. Thank you, Lucy Moffat, for picking that case. And yeah, great title. It was definitely spot on in terms of describing him. And thank you once again to all the Patreonies for the support and continued support, and all the news and the OGs. Thank you very much.
So this Monday, it's going to be a big one. It's the case of Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yes.
So we hope you guys enjoy that one. Next week we'll be back with more Patreon polls. We can't wait to go through those. And then we've got one more episode, and then the series is done.
Yeah, we are figuring out what we're going to do in the off season. We might do some different bits and pieces, but we're kind of in the middle of discussing that. Do let us know if there's anything you think, a slightly different thing we could do to populate our channels during that off season. Obviously, we'll still be doing minisodes on here. That's not going to go. We'll obviously keep that up, but we're thinking about maybe some kind of things, strands on the main channel and the main audio as well, to keep things ticking away. We don't want to just disappear.
Yeah. So not like full cases like we do on the main channel, but other things that you guys might find interesting. We're also going to do some live streams, right? Or a live stream?
We are thinking about doing a lot, because we've been banging on about it for about 25 years. But we are planning to do a live stream. We think Dan and me have discussed how we could configure things that would mean we could cut between different things. But yeah, we want to make sure that we're able to deliver that in the right way. But with live streams, discussing perhaps the look back on the series, and perhaps a Q&A at the same time, and we'll probably host that over on the main YouTube channel, which we've never done before. So that'd be exciting.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. But yeah, no, thank you. As Tom said, thank you very much, Tom, for the case. I was gripped. It sounded like when you even It. And the kid with the like anything with children that don't know better, I hate it. Children, animals, I just don't. I hate it. But the idea of a guy just trying to get a random child to help, young or old guy, it doesn't really matter. It's still creepy.
It had similar vibes of Myra Hindley with the glove, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Or can you help me move this? And then you're trapped in there. But yes, guys, that's the end of this episode. And until next time, like we always say,
we say this all the time.
Keep doing what you're doing.
It's ripping up checks and wrench.
Checks are fine, but be thorough with the checks.
Yeah, please. We can't
stress that enough.
Yeah, and that one.
See you later. See you, Dan.
Cheers, Dan.
Smash that one, mate.
Officers' houses, and a much larger, isolated building surrounded by a wall, which was referred to as the coast.
Oh, fucking hell, Ben.
Which was, it wasn't me. That wasn't.
Yeah,
me.
No, but any noise you like.
I've got
shell shocked.
I am. I've got my senses are heightened today.